Depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, and listen to what she has to say. Carl Jung's words cut to the bone, because they tell you the truth that most of the world refuses to admit. What you call depression is often not an illness to be eradicated, but a voice you have silenced for too long. You have been told a story that says if you feel heavy, if you can't get out of bed, if your heart feels like it's drowning, then you are broken, that you are sick, that you are defective, and the solution is a label, a pill, a quick fix. But deep down, you know something doesn't add up. How could a human soul, thousands of years in the making, carrying the weight of generations, carrying your story, your wounds, your unspoken dreams, be explained away by 3 words on a medical chart? This is the mislabeling trap. Culture moves too quickly, too impatient to sit with pain. Friends tell you, you'll be fine, just stay busy. Doctors tell you, take this, it will pass. Social media whispers, buy this, scroll that, escape here. But the ache doesn't vanish. It lingers like a shadow behind you, no matter how fast you run. And when you try to silence it, it screams louder. Because depression is not always the disease, it is the signal, the soul's red alarm. Jung saw it clearly. He said neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. In other words, the darkness you feel is not random, it is not meaningless. It is your psyche pointing at a wound you refuse to see. Depression is not just chemicals misfiring. It is your inner self demanding to be heard. The sadness, the emptiness, the exhaustion, they are not enemies, they are messengers. They are trying to tell you, you have abandoned something vital. You have ignored your own depths. Think about it. When someone feels trapped in a loveless marriage, or works a job that crushes their spirit, or lives a life built on pleasing others, what else can the soul do but rebel? The rebellion shows up as heaviness, as hopelessness, as fatigue. You call it depression, but it may be the unconscious crying out, enough. Stop betraying yourself. Imagine a heavy fog rolling over a city. People panic. They say, the fog is the problem. But fog is never a disease. Fog is the weather. It reveals that something else is happening. A hidden storm building, a shift in the air, a deeper transformation underway. Depression is that fog. It descends not to destroy you, but to show you there is a storm inside, and it needs your attention. You feel it when you lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking yourself questions you can't answer. You feel it when you sit in a room full of people yet feel unseen, disconnected, hollow. You feel it when you achieve what you thought would make you happy, but the emptiness swallows you anyway. That is the fog. And beneath it lies the storm, the repressed grief, the unspoken anger, the unlived life. This is the painful truth. You don't have depression the way the world has told you. You have an unlistened soul, a shadow calling your name, a deeper story trying to break through the mask you wear every day. And until you stop running, until you sit with the darkness and let it speak, the fog will never lift. Your suffering is the messenger. Your wounds are the teachers. Your depression is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper conversation with your soul. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Jung's words strike like lightning in a storm, because they strip away illusion. You say you're fine. You say you're coping. But what you do reveals the truth. You chase distractions. You wear masks. And still, the emptiness grows. What you call depression may not be a sickness in your brain, but the aching silence of a soul, starved for something real. You chase external fixes. You scroll until your eyes burn, searching for a hit of dopamine. You fill online carts, waiting for the brief thrill of delivery, only to feel hollow again when the box is open. You bounce from one shallow connection to another, hoping someone will finally make the ache disappear. You drink, you smoke, you drown yourself in noise, because silence feels unbearable. For a moment it works. The glow of the screen. They laugh at a party. The buzz of the purchase. But as night falls, you're left with yourself again, and the silence is louder than before. It's the futility of chasing water in a desert. The more you run, the thirstier you become. This is why Jung warned of the persona, the mask you show the world. It says, I'm fine, I'm strong, I don't need help. You wear it at work, smiling when you feel dead inside. You wear it with friends, cracking jokes while your heart quietly bleeds. You wear it with your family, insisting everything is okay so they won't worry. The persona is designed to protect you, to earn approval, to keep you safe. But every mask comes at a price, because while the world sees the mask, nobody sees you. You become invisible behind your own disguise. The applause feels empty. The attention feels hollow. You feel unloved, because deep down, you know they are clapping for the mask, not for the wounded soul hiding underneath. And this is where the hunger begins. Depression is often not an illness, but a famine of meaning. Your soul craves truth, but you feed it lies. It longs for depth, but you drown it in surface pleasures. It yearns for authentic connection, but you settle for hollow company. This starvation twists into despair. You feel tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've lived too little of what matters. You wake up dreading another day, not because life itself is empty, but because the way you're living has no nourishment for your soul. Look around. How many people live this illusion every day? A man buys a luxury car, hoping it will silence the voice inside whispering, "You are not enough." A woman posts perfect photos online, chasing likes while crying herself to sleep. A couple stays in a loveless marriage, terrified of loneliness while their souls rot in silence. Outwardly they look successful. Inwardly they are starving. This is not just depression. It is hunger disguised as despair. The illusion is powerful because it offers temporary relief. But relief is not healing. Healing comes only when you strip away the mask and admit what you really need. Meaning, love, truth. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and yet, that is the only cure for the famine within." To stop chasing what numbs you, to remove the mask, even if it means others no longer applaud. To face hunger honestly, instead of pretending you're full. Because here is the truth you cannot escape. Depression often isn't the darkness itself. It is the hunger for light. It is the cry of a starving soul that refuses to die quietly. You do not have depression, you have a soul starving for truth, and it will not let you rest until you finally feed it. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Jung's words open the door to a truth most people never dare face. You are not as free as you believe. You think you make choices. You think you decide who to love, what to pursue, how to live. But beneath the surface, something else pulls the strings. The shadow, the unresolved wounds of your past. The parts of yourself you've buried so deep that now they live in silence, shaping every step without your consent. And when you resist facing this truth, projection takes over. Jung warned, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Yet how often do you attack others for what you deny in yourself? You see arrogance in someone else, and it burns you, not realizing it's your own repressed confidence crying for release. You hate dishonesty in others, but you wear lies like second skin, smiling while dying inside. You resent someone's freedom because you have locked yourself in invisible chains. Projection is the shadow's favorite trick, to make you fight outside what you refuse to confront inside. And so life becomes a battlefield of endless conflict. Each enemy, only a mirror of your own hidden pain. But nothing is more suffocating than living as the false self. This is the prison built by the shadow. You wake up and put on a mask, the achiever, the pleaser, the strong one, the quiet one. You convince yourself it's who you are, but every day feels heavier, emptier. Depression creeps in, not as an illness from nowhere, but as the slow death of authenticity. The ego, propped up by lies, begins to collapse under its own weight. You feel like you're losing yourself, but in truth, you're losing the false self that was never you. The shadow doesn't just hide your pain, it hides your power, your truth, your life. And until you face it, you live as a ghost inside your own existence. You do not have depression, you have wounds pulling the strings, and until you face them, they will choose your life for you. Only the wounded physician heals. Jung's words carry a truth that is both unbearable and necessary. You cannot become whole until something inside you first breaks. And there comes a moment when the mask you've worn for years, the face you've shown the world, begins to crack. You can feel it. One morning you wake up and the act is too heavy to carry. The smile won't stretch across your face anymore. The words "I'm fine" get stuck in your throat. The mask slips, and everything you've tried to hold together unravels at once. The breaking of the mask is violent, even if it happens in silence. You lose the job you thought to find you, and suddenly your worth collapses with it. A relationship ends, and with it every illusion of being loved for who you truly are. Or maybe nothing external changes, but inside, the scaffolding collapses. The persona you built, polished, and defended for years shatters, leaving only fragments of an identity scattered on the floor. People around you say, "What happened? You were so strong." But strength was never the truth. It was a costume. And now, with the mask gone, you are naked before yourself. What follows is the abyss. Jung called it the night sea journey, that terrifying passage through darkness, where the ego dies and the soul is stripped bare. You enter it not by choice, but by collapse. It feels like drowning in nothingness. Days blur together. You stare at the ceiling numb. You search for meaning, but every answer feels hollow. The mirror reflects a face you no longer recognize. You tell yourself, "I'm losing my mind," but in reality, the mind you're losing is the false one. The old identity is dissolving. You stand in the void between who you once pretended to be and who you have not yet become. This emptiness is agony, but it is sacred. It is the womb of transformation disguised as death. And hidden inside the wreckage is a gift. Collapse is not the end. It is initiation. Just as a forest must burn for new life to grow, your false self must die for your real self to rise. You are not being destroyed, you are being remade. The storm that shattered your identity is clearing the ground for something more authentic. Individuation begins here, in the rubble, when you finally stop clinging to who you thought you were supposed to be. What feels like failure is actually the first breath of freedom. This is the painful paradox. The moment you feel most lost is the doorway to finding yourself. The collapse that terrifies you is the beginning of your rebirth. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding the mask so the real you can finally emerge. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. Jung's words tear open a secret you've carried your whole life. Much of what you were told was love, was never love at all. It was approval. It was reward. It was a bargain that said, "Be what we want, and we will give you a piece of warmth." You grew up learning conditions, not connection. As a child, you may remember the unspoken rules. Get good grades and they smile. Be obedient, and they call you a good kid. But the moment you expressed anger, sadness, or defiance, the love seemed to vanish. You learned quickly. Hide your truth. Perform what is expected, and maybe you will be safe. This is not love. This is training. It is teaching you to confuse acceptance with affection, performance with worth. And when you carry this lesson into adulthood, you find yourself bending, shrinking, twisting into shapes that please others, hoping to finally taste unconditional love. But it never arrives, because the pattern repeats, and deep inside you feel the quiet ache. Was I ever truly loved, or only tolerated when I fit the mold? This is why what you feel often resembles depression. It is not simply sadness out of nowhere. It is grief. Grief for what you never received. The soul mourns the tenderness it was denied, the safety it never had, the embrace that never came. When you lie awake feeling empty, it is not weakness. It is the heart realizing it has been starving for decades. Jung believed that symptoms always carry meaning. What you call depression is often not an illness, but the soul weeping for the love that never touched it. This grief is sharp, because it unmasks the lie you have lived under. And yet, that pain is sacred. It proves your soul has not given up. It still knows what it deserves. And here lies the hidden liberation, the truth that it was never love, frees you to stop chasing ghosts. You no longer have to contort yourself for scraps of approval. You no longer have to beg the world to give you what it never could. The moment you admit, they did not love me as I needed, you open a door to begin loving yourself as you always deserved. Mourning the false love clears the ground for authentic love, first from within, and then from those who can meet you in truth. What felt like loss becomes space for rebirth. The soul whispers now, you were not unloved, only misunderstood. And the love you were denied is the very love you are now called to give to yourself. It was never love that abandoned you. It was false approval. Real love begins the moment you choose yourself. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Jung's words are the doorway to empowerment, because they reveal the task you have avoided your entire life: to meet the shadow face to face. Healing does not come by running away. It begins the moment you stop fleeing the darkness and dare to walk into it with open eyes. Turning toward the darkness feels impossible at first. You have been trained to escape pain, to drown it with distraction, to bury it under busyness. But the pain remains, waiting. Imagine this journey as stepping into a cave. At the entrance, fear overwhelms you. Every instinct tells you to turn back, yet you lift a torch, and the deeper you walk, the more clearly you see the shapes hidden inside. Shadows on the walls twist into monsters when avoided, but under light you realize they are only parts of you. Wounded, forgotten, abandoned. This is why Jung insisted that depression, anxiety, and despair are not enemies, but messengers. They are the cave calling you inward. To face them is to reclaim the pieces of yourself you left behind. Owning the rejected self is the second step. The shadow is not only your shame and anger. It is also your creativity, your power, your hunger for life. All the things you suppressed to be accepted. You may think your rage is dangerous, so you bury it. But inside that rage is the courage to defend yourself, the fire to stand tall. You may fear your desires, so you silence them. But inside desire is vitality, imagination, and the drive to create. Every trait you exile becomes a ghost haunting you, until you dare to call it back home. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To meet the shadow is not to destroy it, but to embrace it as part of your wholeness. What you reject enslaves you. What you accept transforms you." And this is where the alchemy of suffering begins. Think of your wounds as raw material, heavy and unrefined. Pain burns like fire, but if you allow it to pass through you consciously, it becomes the forge that strengthens your spirit. Betrayal, once integrated, sharpens your discernment. Grief deepens your capacity to love. Failure builds resilience. The very experiences that threaten to break you become the stones upon which your sovereignty is built. Jung compared this to the process of alchemy. Lead turning into gold. Your suffering is the lead, dense and dark, but when faced, when owned, when integrated, it becomes gold, wisdom, power, and freedom. You have lived long enough enslaved by wounds you never faced. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the key to your strength. It is the part of you that carries everything you need to be whole, and the moment you stop running and instead walk toward it with your torch, you begin to discover that the monster was never there to destroy you. It was waiting to set you free. You are not broken. You are becoming whole, and your shadow is the doorway to your power. Man cannot stand a meaningless life. Jung's words strike like thunder because they remind you that despair was never the end of the story. Every collapse, every wound, every shadow has been leading you here to the moment where a new self begins to rise from the ashes of the old. Individuation is not perfection, it is wholeness. And in that wholeness, you finally stop living as a mask and begin to live as yourself. The new self emerges quietly, then powerfully. You no longer beg for approval because you have faced the loneliness of not receiving it and survived. You no longer chase distractions because you have walked through the emptiness and discovered it could not kill you. You no longer pretend to be who others wanted because the false self collapsed and left only what is real. And now, what is real is enough. You can look in the mirror without flinching. You can walk into the world without shrinking. The chains of shame and performance break, and you begin to move with the strength of someone who knows, I am whole, even with scars. This is the moment to redefine peace. You once thought peace meant the absence of pain, the absence of struggle, but true peace is not found in silence or still waters. It is found in alignment. Peace is when your inner world and outer life are no longer at war. Peace is telling the truth, even when your voice shakes. Peace is choosing meaning over distraction, presence over noise, love over fear. The storms of life do not vanish, but you learn to stand as the calm within them. And suddenly what once felt like depression transforms into depth, into awareness, into life lived fully awake. And now, at the end of this journey, the words that once felt like a sentence of despair become a revelation of freedom. You do not have depression. You have a soul that refused to be silenced, a soul that dragged you into darkness so you could rediscover the light. You have a calling to live as yourself, whole and unbroken. You do not have depression. You have a soul calling you back to yourself.